Coming at you with 10 tools I wish I would have bought sooner and why. All right, number one, and these are in no particular order, and these aren't my top 10 tools. These are just 10 tools, that I thought would be better if they were in everyone's toolbox. All right, Crescent Lufkin Shock Force. This is the Night Eyes. This is why I love this. Black tape in a high visibility highlighter yellow or green. I guess you'd call it yellow. If that's green, then this is yellow, huh? All right, I love it. It's on both sides, and it marks the foot and the studs. It's got the reinforced sides on it, so if you drop it, it's not supposed to bust. Number two here, we've got the Aries magnetic spark plug sockets. These are awesome. These are probably one of my favorite tools in the garage. Well, they do exactly what they sound like. They are a magnetic socket that specifically holds these spark plugs in it. So you don't have to try to get your arm down in there sometimes and thread it by hand. Sometimes you just can't reach it by hand, or you got a whole bunch of extensions together to try to get that thing to thread in there, and then this falls out because you taped it in there or something. It saves me tons of time. You just get that thing on the end of there, and it's not going to fall out. And I've never had trouble with one of these. One of my favorite tools. And going along that lines, another thing that I like to use especially when I'm changing spark plugs, is locking extensions. They lock the socket on there, so the socket itself cannot fling off, fall off, or bump off of there. If you've ever had that happen when you're working on something, two hands are full, well, I tell you what, get yourself these. I've got a gear wrench version right here. Next tool, this is Cudo's flush cuts. This is their 5-inch sprung version. I kind of like the springy bit. This has got the lead catcher too, and I'm going to show you how these work. These have quite an advantage in my garage. This amount of zip tie will often cut you. It's not hard to get cut by a zip tie. Look at that. Get right to the bottom of that zip tie, cut it, and now it's flush. There's no tag sharp to cut you. This catches the end, and that's helpful because that thing doesn't fly across the garage or down into an engine bay and get onto the exhaust and start to melt. And I'll show you. Okay, see how flush that is? Okay, you can see the difference. Next tool. I use this all the time in the garage. This is Milwaukee's Fastback. They have a couple different versions. One of them with a screwdriver on the back, too. That's pretty cool. I've got this version with the cut through. Only takes one hand to fling it open and close. Real easy. I use this every day. Love it. Rotating head ratchets. When I'm working on cars, sometimes you can get the angle to crack it loose, like kind of at a 90. But then, if you rotate that thing this way, then you can make it into kind of like a straight driver and get that thing out of there real fast. A lot better than if you're just going like this. A lot of times you don't have enough room to do this all the time, so you turn it into a straight driver, and then you can go straight out. I use these a lot. They come in a whole bunch of different sizes. I have OEM Tools version of this broad-headed pick. If you've ever worked on those little tiny wiring harnesses and the clips that you got to get to sometimes, these work great at getting in there and pushing that tab. And if you slip, the best thing is you're only hitting yourself with a broad tip, not like the sharp point of most picks. This won't stab you, all right? These are user-friendly a little more than those other type of picks when you're doing certain work. They all come in different sizes, slightly different angles at the tip, too. All right, I'll talk about this one next, the Nipple Twin Grip. I absolutely love these things. I use these instead of slip joints because they lock into place. Unlike a slip joint that keeps going back and forth, these lock into the spot that you want them and stay there. Which is very helpful when you're working on things of certain sizes and not changing sizes all the time, so you don't have to keep working that thing. It also has this opening right there to be working like a nail or a screw or a bolt head from the top. So you can work them like this instead of working it like this. This is an Aries tool. This is a locking hose clamp plier. These came in super handy when I was redoing an entire fuel system on a vehicle. And I was working with this size, or close to this size, hose clamps all day long. What this does, instead of needing pliers and holding it with your own grip all the time, you can just lock it into place, and then you can work this thing all the way down the hose that you need to work. Vam Plier Shears. These are their scissors. They're multi-scissors that cut just about everything. I got another video on those, so I'm not going to demonstrate too much here. It'll probably cut that zip tie, no problem. They also have this like tape cutter on the edge. So when you're opening boxes, you just stab that thing in there and drag it across. Not as sharp as a razor blade, but it's also not as dangerous. Like I can drag that across my skin. I use them quite a bit. They're just stuck on my workbench, and these are my go-to scissors in the garage. 10 tools I wish I would have got sooner, and I gave you all the reasons why. I'll put the links down in the description if any of these fit your fancy. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments. Let me know. And if you got some tools that you're like, hey, dude, you should check these out, hit me up in the comments. I'm always interested.